I can figure it out.
All right, you're good, Weston.
All right. Welcome to MS Office Hours. It is Thursday, August 3rd. Let me please introduce our hosts.
Hi, everybody. Heather Cox here.
Hi, all. Stephanie Stevens.
Hey, I'm Garrett.
And I'm Andrea Singrio.
And our last host, Victoria Dean, is celebrating her birthday, so we hope she's having a grand old time. But we've got our presenter here today, Dwayne Hyatt, who's presenting Loop. There it is. All right. So everybody can dance while Dwayne presents to us. Dwayne, the floor is all yours.
Well, thank you. All right, I'm going to share my screen. I'm not a PowerPoint person, despite how much I advocate for PowerPoint online, but I also don't want to bore everybody to death with PowerPoint. So I'm going to go through live demos. We're going to talk about a few of the different experiences that are loop powered and talk about a little bit of the history of it. But I just dropped a link to this page in the chat for you. And I feel like this is really helpful to understand where loop is headed as far as what the pieces and parts are that you are going to have access to. I do plan on getting a little bit nerdy and talking about where some of this stuff is being hidden inside of Microsoft 365 and why it's being hidden the way it is. And yeah, so when I was at Ignite, I want to say 2019, Microsoft unveiled the Fluid Framework. And the Fluid Framework, they did a demonstration showing how you could edit stuff in your email. And I was very confused by this because usually your email is immutable, right? Like when folks send an email, you read the email, there it is. You don't read an email and then edit the email, right? Expecting to give data back to whoever sent you the email. Usually you're going to go to a website, they're going to attach a document, they're going to share a link to a document, send you to a form, those types of things. And so it was really hard for me to understand it when it first came out. But as Loop has matured and progressed and turned ultimately into its own application, and its power is being sprinkled across all the different aspects of Microsoft 365, I've really started to come to love it and understanding what it can do. And Joe Gasper and I did a podcast episode on Loop. And as we experienced and played and, tried to break it and all those types of things, the thing that we came down to that this really brings to the table is number one, speed. It is ridiculously fast. It feels, I don't have any like proof of this, it feels faster than co-authoring a document. And it's incredibly granular with how you can share what you want to share and kind of farm out the information that you want to pull back into your workspace. And so we're going to talk about these three elements of Loop. And you probably have Loop components now. Those are the little things you can open up a chat, start a chat with someone, and you can see this little Loop component working inside of the chat. This is fun and interesting, and a few nuances of what's happening here is whoever created that Loop component is going to own the .loop file. It's actually going to live inside of your OneDrive. So if I go to this user's OneDrive, look at their chat files, you're going to see these .loop files. Now, of course, on Windows OS, nothing's going to open that. This is cloud first application. So this is something you would have to go to office.com and open them there. But because these are files that live in my OneDrive, they abide by a lot of the same rules as other files that live in my OneDrive. I've got versioning, I've got retention, recycling bin, those types of things are available to me. Now, when you're working with someone who has sent you a Loop component, if you're on the receiving side of it, you could just click the title of that Loop component if you want to open it into a full page. So this is going to take you to your browser where you now have a larger canvas. And the canvas of Loop, contrasting it to OneNote, is from the top down. OneNote you know, if you were working on OneNote and you're like, I want to put a picture right there, and then I want to write underneath it, and then I want to ink stuff all over my screen. Loop does not do that. Loop is going to function more like a document. You are going to start at the top, you're going to flow your way down, and you can insert different kinds of items. Now, items aren't technically listed here, but I'm going to make that up because an item is something you insert into a loop page. You can start that by just hitting the backslash. No, that's a forward slash. From here, you can insert all kinds of different little bits and pieces of media and ways to collaborate with others. You have voting tables, task lists, progress trackers for, like, you know, small project management. You can tag people. All those types of things are available inside of this page. So I don't know what Heather's talking. Oh, PowerPoint live demo. Yes, we'll have one of those one day. I felt like it was easier to just share my screen for this one though. So this is a loop file, right? This is a loop file that lives again in that person's OneDrive. It can be shared, so we can share it out with other people beyond the scope of just the chat of where you started it. And you can kind of treat it like a document of sorts that is stored inside of your OneDrive. Now, a trick that I'll show you that I think is pretty handy is you've got lots of chats, I'm sure. You can have these loop components inside of Outlook messages, you know, inside of your email. You can have them inside of Word Online documents. So that's kind of a mind bender, is I've got an editable window to a loop component inside of a document. So lots of places that you can put these things. For email, one little trick nuance that I learned, come on, you can do it, is a lot of people get hung up on this. They open up a new email and loop is grayed out. Try clicking into the body of the email first, and now you can add your loop to your email. So I've had people kind of wonder, like, why is that broken? Well, you can't add a loop to the to line, and you can't make the subject line a loop component either. But you have to add it into the body. So just throw that out there real quick. Now, if you've got lots of emails and you've got lots of chats and you've got loops all over the place, through office.com under the My Content menu, you can actually filter based on loop components. So if you're looking for a loop component and you got a lot of documents, they're spread out all over the place. Like I said, lots of places where these things could exist. You can find them really easily just through My Content. You can filter, you know, by type and then filter by keyword to locate it. Now, the progression of loop beyond just dropping things into chat is the Loop app. The Loop app is in public preview. It does require you to enable it. So you'd have to go into your cloud or config.office.com. You would have to create a cloud policy. You can scope these cloud policies to a preview group of users if you'd like. The Loop app is off by default in preview. And you've got these three policies that you would want to make sure are turned on and enabled so that folks can experience the Loop app. Once these policies are enabled, users will be able to go to loop.microsoft.com. So we'll open up a browser. Whoa, no, that's bad. I don't know what I just searched there. Loop.microsoft.com. And you get to experience the Loop app. The Loop app is also can be installed as a progressive web app or PWA. So you have the ability to just in Edge, you can click up in the browser, you'll get a little prompt that says, hey, yo, you can install an app for this. And once you do that, you can pin it to your taskbar and run it in its own little independent window. So that takes us to the next couple of pieces that were in that document that I shared with you. Loop pages and loop workspaces. I want you to think about components. This is the key word right here, portable. Loop components are portable. Loop components can be dropped into Teams chats, emails, Word documents. Pages are canvases that hold items. And workspaces are workspaces that hold pages, and thus components and items. Workspaces are technically in SharePoint, but they're not in a place in SharePoint that you're ever going to want to go. They are in what was described to me as a headless SharePoint site. We have all this amazing power of SharePoint for content management, file storage, but you don't necessarily need web pages, right? You don't need a com site. We just need the storage. So why should we have all this overhead of a full-blown SharePoint site when we just need the storage? So enter Syntex Repository Services. So if you're the kind of person like Joe Gasper, I'll call him out, that wants to poke around and see where stuff is, you're not going to do that in this case. This is not a SharePoint site that you can access directly. This is a SharePoint site that must be accessed via an application API, in this case, Loop. So the management of your Loop workspace, the management of sharing, all of that is going to be done through the Loop app. The only difference is if you were creating a Loop component in a Teams chat or email, like I said earlier, that individual component or Loop file will live in your OneDrive. What I'm talking to is specifically around Loop workspaces. When you provision a Loop workspace, it will provision a site in Syntex Repository Services. There is no Microsoft 365 group connected to this. This is not a team. This is its own individual service. You can manage membership of your workspace directly via the Loop app. And I want you to take note of something here. There is no owner, there is no member, there is just everything. So when you add somebody to your workspace, they will have access to everything that's in the workspace. They will be able to edit or delete anything that is in the workspace. So keep that in mind. But I'm going to show you why you don't need to do that. I'm going to show you why the workspace can be scoped, if you will, only to the minimal amount of people that are a part of your project. Thinking about this from project management type perspective, thinking about this from a faculty member running a lab, and you've got grad assistants in their lab and they're research assistants and they're doing stuff in the lab. You don't need to add them to the workspace. I'll show you a better way to do that. Loop is also highly visual. It has a real emphasis on icons. It has an emphasis on imagery. So I like space. I have access to all of our stock images. That one looks cool and pretty loopy. It kind of matches the color theme, right? So you have access to all of the stock images that are a part of Microsoft 365, with SharePoint, PowerPoint. It's very, like I said, it's very visual. You want to add icons to all of the different items that you're adding to your page. It's really pretty. I saw I almost called him Chandler. I saw Garrett say in the chat that it has a beautiful icon, and it really does. It has a very, very visual nature to it, and it's designed to pop. I kind of associate this with those of you in EDU that look at your teams in grid view. I kind of like that because I have the ability to focus on the imagery of the team. I'm going to recognize a team icon quicker than I'm going to read tons of text on my screen. So if I know that, my team that I'm always accessing has the little orange basketball, I will probably go to that much quicker if I see all the icons on my screen. I kind of do the same thing with Loop. I add icons to my pages. I add icons into the different items that I'm dropping on my page. So let's talk about these pages, right? So we've got workspace. Remember, workspaces contain pages. You can add a new page. You can create a subpage. You can share a link to a page. You can even turn a page into a component, and I'll show you in a little bit why that is so powerful and awesome. Again, just like the Loop file that I talked about earlier, your pages are going to flow from top to bottom, and they're going to support all of those different items that you can add into your page. So I've got some meaty text here on the screen. You can still do the / and you can insert different types of items into your page. I've got one here for tasks. This is another interesting one. So anybody know the requirements for Planner, right? You create Planner. What do you get with the Planner plan? Get a Microsoft 365 group. So how is this tracking tasks, right? Let's take a peek and figure that out. So I've got a few tasks. I'm gonna add a task. I'm gonna say chat with office hours, and I'm gonna assign that to Nestor. And I'm gonna give it a due date of today. So this task is actually going to be surfaced in tasks by Planner and To Do inside of Teams. I'm not really sure how quickly the email will come through, but we'll give it a chance, and I'll stall and we'll talk about it. Or maybe I've got some other ones. Here's some other ones we can take a peek at while we wait on the notification email. So I've got a task here called Eat Brisket. Well, it's in a loop task list. So if I click on that, it will take me to the loop file. You can also see if we go into Planner. Now look at the assigned to me. I've got a loop task list here that matched that. I've got a few other tasks that I had. If I click on those, this is kind of neat, right? This is a planner board, but it's a linked plan. So I've got some documentation I can drop in the chat for you. This is a planner plan that you're, again, not going to manage directly. This is tied to the task list that you are creating inside of your loop components, inside of your loop pages. This is how it's going to provide that notification that you're going to get. Let's see if the email came through yet. Oh, it never comes through on demos. That's okay. It'll be here eventually. But this is how it surfaces itself inside of the task app, inside of Teams. So if you're working with tasks by Planner, you're going to see those same types of tasks surfaced here as well. There they are. So I've got brisket, chat. There it is, chat with office hours. It showed up in my task list. So this is powerful because imagine a group chat and you're trying to come up with, a plan for something that you want to do real quick. Maybe you don't need to roll planner plan. Maybe you don't need to add them all to a team that has the planner plan in it. Maybe you just need the context to be scoped to this group chat of 5 people. Well, insert a loop component, throw a task list in there and start assigning it to those folks. They'll still get those tasks. They'll still get the reminders and the due dates and all those things that are a part of the planner experience without all the overhead of Planner. So think along those same lines when I was talking about Syntax repository services. You get all the same power without all the overhead of having to maintain and run and manage, granular control over an entire SharePoint site. Let's talk about sharing links to pages, right? So I only have one workspace member here. So maybe I want to share part of my workspace with someone. I want to give them access to it. So I'm going to take this loop long and prosper, and I'm going to share a link to this page. You're going to get the same sharing dialog that you would get for files that you're sharing through Office 365 or Microsoft 365. You can click on this. You can change the parameters of this. Maybe I don't want, like in my demo tenant, the default is that people in my organization can view. Maybe I want to change that. So I want to give this guy specifically access to it. And I want to make sure that he can edit. So I can apply that setting, copy it, send it to him in an email. So let's do that. We'll fire up our chat. We'll go here. Paste this in. So he's going to get a link to this page. Let's switch over to his perspective and see what he got. He just got a link to a page, right? So we click it. It's going to open up in our online browser, in the wrong browser. That's my bad. Try that again. There we go. I know all of you admins can probably appreciate the headache of having a billion different browser profiles. So take a look at what Dwayne sees. He sees the Loop app, but he sees Loop Long and Prosper, just the page. Has no visibility on the sidebar here to anything else. Now, if he has a workspace of his own, he could import it and add it to it if he wants to organize it. But as I'm in here editing, I can see the presence of other people who are also working on this page at the same time. But I have essentially carved out a slice of my workspace. I don't need to give him read-write access to the entire thing. I can give him granular access to the page that I want him to edit. So again, project management, researcher in a lab could create a workspace, could create pages for each of the different workloads, each of the different employees that are inside of that lab, could, share out a link to those respective folks for their page, make sure that they ensure that they only have access to the specific page that they need to have access to. Because again, remember, it says anybody that you add into your workspace has full control over your workspace. And right now in public preview, there is no recycle bin. So if you delete a page, it's toast. It's gone. There is version history, so you can look at the version history of a page just like you could for another document or file, and you can go back and restore to a previous version. But right now in public preview, the recycle bin experience is not there yet. The last thing that I want to show you is one of my favorites. Imagine you have a document. In this case, it's my page inside of my Loop workspace, and I want to have somebody verify this paragraph, right? But again, I don't want to give them access to the page so they can see everything else. I don't want to give them access to the workspace, that's for sure, because now they can delete anything. I want to give them access to this paragraph specifically. So when you hover over a paragraph, you can click the three dots and you can turn that paragraph into a loop component. And do you remember what I said loop components are? What do they get you? They get you portability, right? So now this loop component can be embedded in other places. So I'm going to ask somebody for some information. Hey, I need you to verify this text is correct. So I first have to convert. You can convert a page into a component. You can convert a part of a page into a component. You can copy a link to it or share it. So we're going to copy a link. Same exact sharing dialog. I don't want every single buddy in my company to be able to view this. So I'm going to change this. So I'm going to say specific people. We'll do this guy again. I think he knows a thing or two about bourbon. And we're going to give him edit access, apply. So I'm going to copy this link and I'll head over into Teams and I'll say, can you please verify this? Enter. I'm going to Control V on my keyboard. In Teams, give it a second. Don't give it a second. Oh, that's sad. Let's try this again. I didn't, there we go. I didn't like it being on the same line. When you paste a loop component into Teams or into Outlook or into Word, the applications are aware and smart enough to hydrate it. They can expand it. It's not just going to be a link. It's now going to be, this is that portable part that I was talking about earlier. I can send this to him and he can review and see, he's already in it by nature of being in the chat. He can give me the answers that I need without ever even looking away from the chat. His eyes never shift, right? We don't have to drop, out of Teams and go into a web browser or, hey, check your email and look at the document I just sent you. I can say, please verify this is right. And from his perspective, all he's going to see is a chat. And I can say, oh, okay, let me read over this. So bourbon is a unique spirit. It has not been around for 300 years. It has been around for 900, or I'm sorry, it hasn't been around for 9. It's been around for 3. Let's see. It has to be made in Kentucky. That's not right. It just has to be made in the United States. Formally declared a distinctive product of the state of Kentucky. Well, that's not right either, of the United States. So I can edit all of that. And when I switch back over to Nestor's view, he's seeing that edit happening live in the chat. But more importantly, we're also seeing that edit happen live in the workspace. So I have sent out just a small part. Think about this like sharing out a link to a paragraph in a Word document. I'm giving someone access just to the paragraph that I need them to see. They are editing it, and all of the editing is happening live. Imagine this from the perspective of a project manager. They've got a workspace and they can send out all the pages they need. They can send out components as they become necessary. And as people are doing the work, it's all just forming into the whole bigger picture in their workspace. And they just kind of sit back and watch it happen. You know? So that's all I got about Loop. We got 5 minutes left for questions, but I have a question for you specifically. I want you to put in the chat use cases that you see for Loop in education. I want to know, now that you kind of see what this can do, please tell me in the chat, how do you see this working in the classroom, out of the classroom, administratively, project management, all of those things? Please, I need your feedback and I would like it.
Can I ask my
Oh.
question?
Sure.
Because I really don't know the answer to this. I love a loop. I love using it in chat, but what I don't understand is why it doesn't work in a Teams channel. And Dwayne, being significantly smarter than me, I know knows this answer, right?
It is. It's being worked on. Yeah, that is the intention, is for it to support channels. So right now, I mean, again, it's all preview at the moment. So this is not its final form. But yes, the intention is for this to come to Teams channels.
The workaround that I've been using in a Teams channel is just to add a tab with a web link, and it's not as cool as it is inside of a chat, but that's what we've been doing.
And I've just been adding the link to a conversation on a channel, so it stays right there. I'm just ready for it to be part of the conversation, I think is what I want. And so I was like, so I was just curious because that's not been on my top list, and you just made me realize that it still couldn't do it. So I'm very excited then. Thanks. Words are hard today for some reason, y'all. It must be because I'm on the East Coast.
I will tell you that I just recently, I think some people in the chat are saying this, but for student project signups, or for people like me who are nerds about personalized learning and co-planning. So the model would be that I check in with each one of my students. This is a really easy way to have this loop going as they're doing center work or as students are working on their own things, and then just type their name in when they're ready and tag me, and then here they come for co-planning. So there's like a million ways. And I think it's so cool to see all the ways, even from the administrivia that we have to accomplish, how people are dropping these ideas in the chat.
Awesome.
There's been a few comments. This isn't replacing OneNote. Heather Cox will not let that happen.
No. From her cold dead Charlton Heston hand.
That's right.
Yeah, this is different. There are, especially in education, there are some very specific, amazing capabilities that OneNote brings to the table with class notebooks and those types of things. That is not Loop's objective. Loop's objective is for small task forces, 6 to 12 people in a workspace, to generate ideas, get them down on, paper, so to speak, really, really quickly. Remember what I said in the beginning, it's all about speed. This thing is so fast, being able to drop this into a chat, get the answers you need, and it's instantaneously updated in your workspace. So different approaches, different purposes. I don't know that I would necessarily use Loop for documentation for my, sysadmin team or something like that. I'd probably still stick to OneNote.
All right.
Totally.
Well,
Love it. Dwayne, you rocked it.
I know. What a great way to kick
Nice.
off our brand new year. And then, they pointed out we're going to need PowerPoint Live, and I know Dwayne does a great demo of that, so he'll be back. But thank you all for joining us. When we came back, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to kick everyone out of the meeting, because I don't know about all of y'all, but we've been talking about that internally, about we can't stand when the little meeting icon just sits there.
Hovers.
Sits there and sits there because people don't leave. So
I have
thank you for
one
joining
quick
us.
announcement.
Yes.
Next week, we are focusing on automation. So Automation Unleashed, Microsoft Forms, and Power Automate in Action. Thank you to those that shared their examples. I'll be reaching out to you today and Monday about having you put together a slide to share. So we're going to talk about updates to forms and how to use some of this great automation. And we got a lot of great examples from this community. So really excited. Amy Bandy Taylor is going to be presenting some great stuff next week. So really excited to have her with us.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you all.
See ya.
See you next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Adios.
Bye.